Alright guys, today we're going to be building a Debian Linux machine. I do this for clients fairly regularly. One of the biggest reasons is for SFTP, for disaster recovery backups and restores. Frequently what my clients will do is take an existing Windows machine, install an SFTP server that runs as a service, and call it done. Well, what tends to happen is that service fails, and so backups start failing. Somebody reboots the machine, causing backups to fail because the service doesn't automatically restart. Windows updates could break the functionality. Firewall rules could change due to a GPO that breaks functionality. By using this Linux box that's dedicated to this purpose, we escape all of that. The Linux box just sits there. It's only used for SFTP backups, and it does its job perfectly. Most of the engineers that work for IT at the client won't know how to touch it or that it exists, so it just continues doing its job, no issues. Another reason that I build Linux servers for clients is to stand up certificate authority servers for .local and .internal domains, and other times it'll be to set up NTP, DNS, and fake gateway servers when I'm building in a parallel environment. So for right now, we're just going to build the Linux server and get the base set up. It should take about 5 minutes. I've already got the ISO uploaded to the data store, so we're just going to burn through this. We're going to double all the resources to make everything go a little bit quicker. Although for a pure SFTP server, you don't need a whole lot. In fact, we could probably drop this down to just 256 megs of RAM once we finish. Let's mount this ISO. And let's go ahead and change this from BIOS to EFI because it's 2019 and that's where we should be. Alright, it's built. Let's open the console. This might be a little small to see. The VMware Remote Console doesn't do well on high DPI displays. So we're going to run through the graphical install. And the defaults are pretty much going to be fine everywhere. We don't really care what the name is, but if the client requests it, just go ahead and name it how they want. We'll use DHCP for this, and we can do a MAC address reservation, but if the client requests, you can also do a static. United States, American English. This is the net install ISO, so almost everything is going to be installed from a remote repository. Typically, you might want to go ahead and change that in your app sources, but for this demonstration, we're just going to pick ftp.us.debian.org. For here, we'll pick a password that's really easy but meets the complexity requirements, and you can see it there. We'll make our personal account because it's required. Same password. For Central Time. We'll go ahead and launch Super Putty and have it waiting. Super Putty, if you're not familiar with it, is just a front end for Putty. Makes it look kind of like Putty Connection Manager or Secure CRT where you can have multiple tabs. We'll write the changes to disk. Right now we're installing the base system. Should go pretty fast. We're not installing any extras or anything. The extras that we will install will be your standard system utilities and SSH, of course. But as you can imagine, this will be a pretty lightweight system. We'll drop it down to 1 vCPU when we're finished, and we can drop it down to about 256 megs of RAM. Not going to need a whole lot to generate CA certificates or to do SFTP backups for anything. So this will be a very small system. Alright, base install is completed. We do not want to scan another CD or DVD. We're in the United States. And there's Debian. So it's going to go ahead and configure all of that. We'll see what we're allowed to pull down, and then we'll modify it and go. We do not need the desktop environment, so the first thing we'll be turning off is the default desktop environment that comes with this. We'll enable SSH, and we'll disable printer services. I think that's what comes default. This should go pretty quickly. We are running esxi 6.7, but you could easily do this on a bare metal machine, in Linux KVM, whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. It just needs to be accessible via network. All right, we do not want to participate in package usage survey. Let's turn off the desktop environment, turn off the print server, turn on SSH. That's all installing now. And as you can see, it's going relatively quickly. Most of the files are pretty small. There's only a couple things that we'll install manually once we get in. It's going to be Vim, because we love Vim. And actually OpenSSL will be included, so that's all we're going to install. We're loading the Grub bootloader now, which means we are almost complete. There we go. We are completed. We'll go through the first things that I like to do when the system boots up. We're going to log into our VM through the console first, mostly because OpenSSH by default will not let root log in with a password. So let's go ahead and edit that. We'll see it down here. It's under permit root login. It's got prohibit password by default. Let's change that to a yes and comment that prohibit out. We'll need to restart SSH for that to take effect. And while we're in here, let's go ahead and install them. Next, since we use DHCP, we'll want to find out what our IP address is. And in this case, it's 192.168.128.40. And we're in. So we can go ahead and log off of this and do the rest of our work. If we're going to be using this as an SFTP server for DRS purposes only, then basically what I might do is do a user add, and let's give it a home directory and make it a system account. We'll call it Cisco. Let's give it a password. We'll just do Cisco 123 shift bang at, or bang at pound, sorry. And we've done that. Now if we go into our homes, we should have this Cisco directory here. And at this point, we would just set up DRS to connect to this IP address, which hopefully has been reserved for this Mac, or else we'll have some problems, or statically assigned. And backups will start to go to this directory. Pretty easy. You can also break it out and do and that way you can specify the folders. So pretty simple. Thanks.